I am just unbelievably excited for this episode of the Executive Package, where we produce content for entrepreneurs because you have to do. I got David Kinder here. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me. David Kinder is a living legend in our business. He provides a very valuable service that is so crucial. Agents, financial professionals, advisors die to have somebody they can look to provide great education, great information, quality stuff. That's what we all need when we start out in finance or insurance. And David runs one of the largest forums for people to connect, to share ideas, and for financial professionals to grow. And David has been just emerged as an iconic person who not only runs the group, but really prides himself in providing a high quality educational material for new agents to not get sucked down the gimmicky marketing rabbit holes, but to stay down the path of, hey, doing this business the right way. I'm pumped to have you, David. Thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Quite frankly, all of this almost feels like an accident, because when I first got started, it didn't seem like anybody was there for me the way I would have wanted. And if I could help somebody to get off onto a better footing, if I could help somebody to do a better job, not only will that individual agent do a better job, but we could lift the entire profession. And our profession needs a little bit of help. And we just don't always have the right messages, always the right image out there. And if I could do a little bit that we can present ourselves in a better light, I'm all for it. And it all comes back around. So I believe in karma. In fact, quite literally, karma was my grandmother's name. I believe in karma. And by the way, our dog's name was Murphy. So we had it all the way around. So
karma and Murphy's Law. That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, hey, that's awesome, David. And I know I've been an admirer of yours for a long time, for sure. I love watching everything you post in there. And I take it for granted because I was blessed to have my dad bring me into the insurance business, bring me into retirement, financial services, teach me. And he was my mentor. I mean, he still is my greatest mentor. So I take that for granted. But if you're a new agent, a new advisor out on your own, and you don't have that mentor, a parent, friend, a coach, a manager that you look up to that will put your arm around you, you provide that service for these agents in the life insurance agent discussion, man. And I know people, they love it. It's just a great way to provide quality education to make people better. See, what I love about your group, David, is that's financial advisors and professionals and agents practicing at night, practicing their craft. You know what I mean? Giving back, getting better. It's awesome, man. It's really a great service. So the reason why I wanted to invite you on the show was you would tell me about this story, which when you told me in pre-show prep, I was tingling at some point. Going, I can't believe this is crazy. I wanted to tell the story on the show because I think it'll provide so much value. And as somebody who works in retirement, it changed some things that I think about, some paradigms that I had built in some things, and it had caused me to challenge my lens and view on how I help people with retirement. It's really innovative stuff, man. I'd love for you to share it with us if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm so honored to be able to share it. By the way, I normally keep all of my clients' information confidential, but this particular case, they have also, let's be honest, they have a vested interest in my success. This has to do with my own parents. So, and with their permission, I'm allowed to share quite a bit of details about what happened. Here's the thing. We talked a little bit about COVID and the impact it's having, not just on the economy, but the thing that I'm noticing is the impact it's having on people that are in their pre-retirement to retirement years. Mm-hmm. So especially if you're within 5 years of your planned retirement, well, COVID might have just shaken everything up. Yeah. And I want to share this because my father, he was essentially a victim of the COVID economy. And there's more details to this than most seniors, however you want to call it, most grandma and grandpa, that's the right term. Most grandma and grandpas don't have a lot of these issues in their careers. This one was special. So let me outline this. First of all, and I'll also tell you that I did not get this case gifted to me. My father ran the Orange County Courthouse cafeteria in Orange County, California. He was my first job at the age of 13. I was fired at the age of 13. So I want to let you know, we have a high standard in our family, okay? Now, I happen to know the other officer of the corporation, and she made sure I was hired back on the next day. That was Mom, okay? So we're able to work through that. But I did learn how to make sure that you always looked busy in a cafeteria establishment. That was an interesting thing. Better to learn that at 13 than at 35. So There's some good
I love
lessons
the
there.
dynamics of the family business too. Dad fires you, mom rehires you. That's totally like classic family business too.
Mom made sure it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so with COVID, what happened with my dad ran the Orange County Courthouse cafeteria for about 39 years, thereabout. When COVID hit, we all went into shutdown. This was back in March of last year. And we all went shut down for like 3 weeks. I think that was the mandated amount of time. Everybody stay at home. The courts decided they were going to be closed until, I believe it was May 1st. So they were going to be completely closed through April and reopen May 1st, or that first Monday in May. I can't remember the exact detail. If you're thinking about a cafeteria or a restaurant, yes, you have your inventory and your fresh items. Yeah, those might go bad. That's kind of a minor thing. But the big thing was how do you get people in the door?
Yeah.
Well, we get people in the door, primarily the courthouse administration, whoever works there, they would come in. You got your sheriffs, and you've got your judges, and more importantly, you have the juror summons. Now, if anybody believes that crime doesn't pay, believe me, we've had a great career of this place being in business for all this time, and we made pretty darn good, solid middle-class business owner income. Okay.
Yeah.
But when most of your traffic comes through from jury summons, here's what happens. See, before COVID, the County of Orange, they would send out your jury summons and report in like at 8 a.m. Monday morning. And you got to report to the juror room, which was right next to the cafeteria itself. So if you're getting there that early in the morning, you're going to pick up some coffee, maybe get some breakfast or whatever it is. Well, they cut back on the jury summons. And so instead of sending out 600, they send out 200. And then they were going to come in at different times of the day and stagger it out. Why? Social distancing. Makes sense. That's what the administration is going to do. Well, what did other restaurants do? They turned to Grubhub, DoorDash, and all those other Uber Eats, all those kinds of delivery services. Ain't nobody going to contact one of those and say, I want some cafeteria food.
No.
It ain't going to happen.
It's not happening. No.
Granted, it's good food. Okay.
Sure.
It's not high end, but it's good. Good
it's just
quality.
not marketable. It's not going to stand up on DoorDash compared to Outback Steakhouse,
Yeah. And people are not going to come in out of their way to go through the metal detectors to then go up to the third floor to go ahead and get, off the street. It's not going to happen. So the marketability and the audience was severely depleted on this. Yeah. My dad gave it a good shot. He stayed open and he made enough to cover expenses most of the time, but not enough to have an additional income for him, just to try to keep the doors open. I gave him a nice marketing idea, which, can we give something that's of a low cost but a high perceived value? I said, Dad, just give out a free fountain drink with purchase. We'll bribe people to come on it. Take a drink, buy something, see what happens. Still broke even. So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't enough. And my dad finally said, enough, we're done. Turned in his keys, closed out everything, sold the inventory back to the state of California because they are the ones that run the place.
Wow.
And he got out. My dad originally was planning to retire at the age of 70. He's 68 and a half. So essentially he was cut out of 18 months of income. And so my dad contacts me and said, son, I'd like you to take a look at some things. How can we bridge our income to age 70 before claiming the top Social Security amount? So here's the thing about my dad. So I'm kind of going backwards a little bit here. My dad has had some mixed experiences with financial professionals. He's had one that was pretty good, but then he was convinced out of it, went with someone else that wasn't quite so good. Then my dad's made his own questionable decisions. Sometimes he'll do his own research to make himself feel good, and yet he'll get the wrong conclusion. So sometimes we'll talk to somebody and say, well, I'm my own financial advisor. To me, that's a little scary. I'm going to give you a quick example on that. My dad was doing Social Security planning, essentially. And when you're the business owner, you can determine how much salary you report for yourself, how much salary you report for others, business owners.
Definitely.
And he was making the incomes the same between him and my mother. And I said, well, why are we doing that? Well, son, when I pass away, I want your mother to have the best Social Security check. I said, Dad, wait a minute. Let's suppose there's a total of $4,000 monthly benefit.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make them both $2,000, when you pass, mom's going to get $2,000, the bigger of the two, not both. But if you keep yours higher, then maybe yours might be $3,000 and she'll get that.
Right.
And he's like, oh. Sometimes we think that we know these things as consumers and we come to the wrong conclusion on occasion.
That happens with everything. It's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so it's like, I'm glad that he ran that by me a little bit, made sure he got the right conclusion. But one of the things that he did completely get right was that he wanted to wait to age 70 to claim on his own Social Security earnings record. I said, David, what can we do? I said, well, send me your statements. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
I got to do an inventory and let's see what we can really do.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a little bit of some product detail. I like to call them wealth contracts in terms of how life insurance and annuities can work to create unique outcomes. And while this is a great program for consumers, I can't get around not talking about the products that we use in the contracts. And so I'll have to get a little technical on some of these things.
Sure.
But
I love that term, wealth contract. So that's cool. I've never heard that before. That's awesome.
yeah, well, the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, I want to make sure that life insurance and annuities are being presented properly. Sure. Unfortunately, when we hear those terms, we get preconceived ideas and maybe some negative experiences and things.
Yeah.
But so if I could rename them, I would call them a wealth contract, but I'm not allowed to. It's not completely in my purview. But looking at how we can use the benefits and the provisions of these contracts within the tax law, within the economic ways that they work, I was able to generate a superior result of a plan without taking on superior risks. And I look back and I still like, wow, I almost can't believe I created that, but I did. So I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one.
It's crazy. Can you show us, can you do the breakdown of the numbers like you did for me in the pre-show of how you structured it? Or
I could do, I want to keep it on a high level. I don't want to get too much in the weeds because
just
I get in the weeds.
Concept.
So we'll do it on a high level. But let's talk about some of the problems in retirement planning.
Sure.
One of the big problems today is the safe withdrawal rate. The safe withdrawal rate is the amount that, based on various studies, the amount that you can take out and be able to successfully retire to age 90 and still have at least $1 left. And right now, based on the most recent research and such, it's 2.8% a year. 2.8% a year is not a whole lot of money to take out as income. And that's just to have $1 left.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not talking about to be able to take out a little bit so it could keep on growing and have an estate for the family and leave a legacy. We're not even talking about, we're talking about having $1 left over. Yeah. And you only got 2.8% a year. That stinks.
Yeah.
But let's put the real numbers on it. If you had $1 million in the portfolio and you're taking out 2.8%, that's $28,000.
Yeah, we had David McKnight on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was just saying how that's a really expensive way to retire.
Yes. Very expensive way to retire. And I have a little bit of fun, but let's talk about this. Your fiduciary securities advisor, the one who says that we put your needs and everything first. Well, they're going to charge you a fee on that portfolio for you to get your 2.8%. That fee could be 1.5%. So imagine that you're paying a fee that's more than half of what you're getting as a net result out of that particular strategy.
Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. So you're saying that 2.8%, you're literally paying your advisor almost the same income you saved your whole life to take out. That's crazy.
Oh, let's have a little more fun. I'm going to take you to the next level.
I never thought about that. That's crazy.
Get this one.
Yeah.
That financial advisor only needs 4 clients just like you to replace the same amount of income that you took 40 or 50 years to create.
That's crazy.
Just insane. Now, granted, that's how it works. Most people just don't know that that's how it worked. And so, yes.
I'm in the wrong business. I'm going to stop hosting podcasts.
Well, it is lucrative. And what's interesting is that the media narrative is on their side. That's what's interesting about it, is that they say, see a fee-based or fee-only fiduciary advisor, they'll take care of you.
Oh, so yeah.
Because they're legally obligated to put your needs first. And that's the narrative. And quite frankly, it's a great sales narrative.
Yeah.
The problem is that there isn't that much higher level of thinking going into the planning. So that's
interesting.
That is the option 1. Now, if I did option 1 with my parents, they would have had about, what was the number? I think it was about $16,000 a year income from what they had that would be investable assets.
So that's 2.8% of whatever they have is 16 grand about, right? And that was
about $16,000 a year. Now, my dad did not slave away, blood, sweat, and tears over firing me. No, but over having this cafeteria for over 40 years to be relegated to just that much aside from his Social Security benefit. Like,
Yeah,
no,
16,000 is not a lot of money to live on. It's not, it's just not enough for most people.
not enough for most people. And there's a whole lot more to this story because there's more moving parts. But
Yeah.
so that's the first one. Now, my parents did have another financial advisor that wasn't me.
Interesting.
And so I'm thinking, well, what would that advisor put together? I'm pretty familiar with our industry. I know what most advisors might do to try to do some problem solving. And so I thought, well, this advisor, if I were them, knowing what I believe that they teach, they would probably look at a variable annuity with a lifetime income benefit. Now, that would be one way to solve for the income gap, and you can get a.
David, for people watching who don't even know what you just said, variable annuity with a guaranteed life, because I like to bring value to all audiences, right? There's consumers who are going to go, a variable what with a guaranteed what?
What did I just say? Can we translate that into English, please?
Why would they use a variable annuity with a guaranteed lifetime income rider? What would that do in that portfolio for that person? Like why do you go there?
Well, what that is a contract with an insurance company that has mutual fund sub accounts. So you don't lose the investment potential in the contract. At the same time, you're also able to put on a rider or a program, so to speak, where you can take out a certain amount of income, and it can be customized. It's based on age and based on number of people that it covers. So let's suppose two people, and it's based on the younger age, so age 65. You probably get about 5% of whatever's in there, or the higher values, because sometimes it'll lock in higher values at different times, and you can take that income out for the rest of your life. Now, that's one option. There's two downsides of that option. The first downside is that it's generally not very tax sensitive. If taxes go up, taxes stay the same, which are they really going to go down? I can't think of anybody who's paying attention to our national debt situation right now saying the taxes are going to go down.
Not one guest have we had on the show that has said taxes are going to go down, by the way. We ask almost every guest that, and not one has ever said that.
Yeah, well, and last year was an incredible record-breaking year, and not in a good way. We added over $4 trillion of new spending because of the stimulus spending last year. Granted, it's like I'm torn on it because I support it, and then I know what it's doing. I don't like it, but but the alternative is worse. So I get that. But I don't see how taxes could possibly be going down. Granted, I believe that as taxes go up, they're going to go up for higher income earners, and I think they're going to leave the more of the middle income alone, at least at first.
Good.
It may eventually creep into the lower brackets. So that's my belief. Who knows if that's what's going to happen? I know that President-elect Biden, when he was campaigning, talked about the 400,000 on up of income.
Yeah.
So that might be where we transition from. But it's like the pot of water boiling a frog. That's how you cook a frog. You just got to keep it cold and you turn up the heat gradually. And eventually you don't realize you're being cooked.
Yeah.
So the annuity does not offer the tax sensitivity because it is what it is, and it's still completely subject to the tax code.
Okay.
The other part is that it has higher internal fees and expenses. Now, I can outline all that stuff. Let's just say, all in all, it ends up being about 3 to 3.5% a year.
Totally checks out with average variable annuity fees when you add them all up.
Yeah, it's all right in there. Just
maybe on the low end.
Could be. Well, let's just call it that. Well, it doesn't affect the payout to the client, but it does affect the remaining balance, if any, to the ultimate beneficiaries.
Okay.
So that is the only other negative side of that. Otherwise, okay, you'd have guaranteed income for life based on the insurance company's ability to fulfill its promises. I get that. What I was able to put together has far more versatility, far more protections, and far more flexibility, and I didn't need to use all the assets to make it happen.
Wow.
So what we were able to do, because all of these other ones, I assumed that you'd have to put everything in to generate a certain result. I was able to leave, in context, I was able to leave about 20% liquid money in case of emergency or opportunity. Granted, I don't know what kind of opportunity would really show up for my folks, unless they find a different house to buy and move. I'm not really sure what that would look like. Going back to a little bit of context, my dad does have poor health. He's epileptic and he's legally blind, can't see out of his right eye. My dad doesn't really have other hiring propositions or anything else that he would really do. So he's really stuck to the retirement. So I wanted to get back to that part because it's not like he could just find another job.
Yeah.
And so what I was able to do, let me go back. Option one was going to generate about $16,000 a year of income, cash flow.
Right.
and also fully taxable. Option two, assuming the variable annuity that the other advisor might put together, that would generate about $35,000 a year because it's guaranteed, for probably 2 lives,
Wow.
and so, but also not tax sensitive.
So what you just said was interesting because people are claiming, and they're not claiming, they're writing in for help because they're running out of money. And you're sitting here going, you could walk into any insurance company in America and buy income so you don't run out of money. But what you just said was so interesting that you kind of skipped over that I want to highlight before you build to your grand point. I'm sorry to derail you, but you said in the original plan, under conventional methods of taking out 2.8%, your parents would get 16 grand.
Yes.
And if the current advisor just swapped out a portion of whatever they currently own with an annuity, they could take out 35 grand?
Yeah, because it would be about 5%. And that's covering two people's life expectancy.
Oh my gosh. So that 35 grand doesn't stop like a pension. If the first person dies and they choose the full pension, it would continue for your mom's life too?
That would have continued for my mom's life too. Yes. So what's important is to make sure that the advisor actually chooses for a joint life payout, or that you have the contract that would do joint life payout. Sometimes they talk about it, but they might only choose single life only. And then when they pass away, unless there's a residual benefit, there's nothing left for the second person. So we have to be very careful because sometimes not every annuity company will do that. Just important to double check.
Wow, it's a good tip. Thank you.
And so option three was a combination of a certain annuity that I knew about and a life insurance policy. You might say, what do these have to do with retirement? Life insurance, really?
Yeah, you wouldn't think life insurance. You don't. When you think trying to generate the highest income, you don't think life insurance first. Most people don't.
That's right, they don't. And why is that? Well, we think of life insurance often as a bill. We think of life insurance as, what if something happens? I better have something just in case. And of course, life insurance fulfills that role. But remember, if I was going to rename it, I wouldn't call it life insurance. I'd call it a wealth contract. And wealth contracts are subject to federal and state laws, and each individual state may have their own variations of whatever laws that govern those contracts.
Yeah.
But as long as we look at the economic and the tax benefits of these contracts, there's some amazing benefits once we know how to quantify them. So how do we quantify them? Well, I'll put it this way. With this advisor and such, what happened was that my mother came back to me and said, look, I want my financial advisor to tell me that this is good. And I'm thinking to myself, your financial advisor is not going to tell you that this is good unless they can do it. And they already said, we've done a lot of these. They're good for people in their mid 40s, maybe the early 50s. They need time to grow. And then it could make sense. But basically, you're too old. That's what the advisor essentially said.
That's what I'm thinking right away. Yeah, it's like, how could you do it?
Exactly. And I don't blame the advisor for thinking that way.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm thinking, you don't know what I know. And that's where it gets to be fun. But when my mother said, I want my financial advisor to sign off on this, I realized the burden of proof is on me. Yeah. I need to substantiate why what I can do is truly in their best interest. So remember, they're not doing this just because I'm their son. They want to give me a little bit of a break. I'm sure there's a little bit of that in there, but at the same time, it has to make sense. I have to make sure that they're materially better off doing business the way I would do it rather than some of the other alternatives.
Yeah.
So I put together a plan. It took me a good 3 or 4 weeks because I had to create everything from scratch, essentially, but I knew the equations and everything. The cash flow I was able to generate would be 48% more than the safe withdrawal rate. It's going to be about $24,000 a year based on this plan. And that's continuing through age 90 for both of them.
Wow.
So that was that. Now, here's the other part that substantiates some of this. Life insurance does not have a great rate of return. Let's just admit that right now. There is no great rate of return in life insurance.
Right.
But the way that you can spend against the contract using a life insurance loan, and it's not a traditional loan, you're just getting capital against the policy. Mm-hmm. And you can do it each and every year as long as you don't take out too much. And what I mean by that is you take out too many in loans, that more than the cash value, then the policy implodes. And we don't want that. We got to make sure the policy stays in force.
Yeah.
That loan is tax exempt. Now, tax exempt is very different from tax free. Tax free is like your Roth IRA. The Roth IRA, you take income from that. It doesn't affect anything else in your taxes, but you still have to show that you did it.
Right.
so you still have to file a tax return. This is a loan. Loans are not taxable as income. There's nowhere to put it on your tax return. So if we take that amount of the loan and we do the backwards math, how much money would we have to have in a taxable account to equate that cash flow? And what I discovered from doing the math,
Yeah.
my parents would have to earn on what they had. They have to earn 11.5% per year for 10 years after fees to equate what I created for them on an almost guaranteed basis in terms of the cash flow.
That's crazy.
And if we look at it from a lump sum perspective,
Yeah.
we're able to spend, this is the numbers, 460,000 we'll spend as those that had 1.7 million. And so what we've learned is that where your money is more important than what it earns.
Wow.
And it's huge. It makes a big difference. Now, some people love our strategies because they hate the IRS and they really want to stick it to them and say, I ain't paying you no more. And I love that. Those people, those make very nice cases.
Yeah.
But there's the other side. And the other side is that for the people who really could need this, and if they qualify, get everything worked out, we can restore and revitalize the promise of having a successful retirement, that you can have that happily ever after retirement because of the way these contracts work.
That's awesome. You buy a wealth contract and you have a wealthy, happy retirement.
Absolutely. And we have a couple of these wealth contracts that we're working together to create this superior result. Superior results without taking on a superior risk. I'm still amazed that it's still possible, but there it is. This is synergy at work. Now, synergy is better than compromise. If we're familiar with Stephen Covey, compromise is 1 + 1 = 1.5. But synergy is 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100.
I like that.
And we could create the synergy in these contracts to create that result. And we'd have the safety, security, and guarantees. You don't have to watch the news and figure out what the stock market's going to do to figure out if you're going to have a good day or a not so good day.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed with it. And now we have a couple of other points in here because remember, my dad had a business, right?
Right.
And so here's the thing. My dad also had a business line of credit and a credit card. Now, this is about $50,000 total debt. And I'm convinced if you talk to any other financial advisor, they would just say, well, just take out a withdrawal or just make your payments, make sure it's all taken care of. Well, what my dad was trying to do is he was trying to bankrupt it. He actually retained an attorney, talked to the attorney about, trying to bankrupt this debt because it wasn't his fault that the business got shut down and became not so economical anymore. Not his fault.
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem.
Good.
The problem was that a certain portion of my dad's assets was in a revocable living trust. And a revocable living trust has no creditor protection for the grantor of the trust, which was him. And there was plenty of assets in that trust where bankruptcy was not an issue. It would not be a possibility. But the attorney didn't quite know that. See, I think when the attorney asked the question, tell me about your assets, my dad said, well, it's all for retirement. Thinking and I assume that the attorney was thinking, oh, so they're all IRS regulated retirement plans. They all have creditor protections, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, I know a little thing. I don't practice the unauthorized practice of law, but I know a little things to be dangerous enough. So I created some questions, wanted to make sure that I got my dad, myself, let's go talk to the attorney. Let's get some clarity here. And so when I finally got to that question with the attorney, and the attorney's like, oh, that changes things. Gave us an outline of what's possible. And, we left the office and thinking about it, I didn't like the options. You see, my dad still had a personal guarantee on that loan. And that's what allows the creditor to pierce the corporate veil to go into the personal part to claim the asset. Well, even if he did a business bankruptcy, they would still be able to come after him personally. The question is, would they recognize that? Would they remember that they could do that? And you're taking a risk of whether the creditor would remember it or not. And some might not. And that's what the attorney was saying. He's like, you might not have to worry about it. I don't like might not. I mean, we retained the attorney to get a result. And we want give me something sure here.
Yeah. Might not's not good. That's like the captain getting on the speaker before the plane story. You know what I mean? Like might make it is not good enough. You know what I mean?
We have a 90% chance of making sure we land. Oh, really? Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah. That's your option 2, or option 1. That's your Monte Carlo.
Exactly. And so after looking at the flexibility of the plan I put together, now something else, business lines of credit, like home equity lines of credit, they're good for 10 years. And after the end of 10 years, you can either renew them for another 10, or you can turn it into a loan, usually for a 10-year note, or you can pay it all off at once. You have your balloon payment option.
Right.
Well, all of those would increase the cash flow needed at that time. And you can't renew it when you don't have a business. If you're retired and you're retired for another 8 years when the thing would come due and you don't have a business, how can you renew a thing for a business that doesn't exist anymore? So we know that something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so the nature of the life insurance we put in place and the way that we structure the policy, after year 5, there was going to be more than twice the amount available to borrow against and pay off that loan.
Wow.
And so that's what we incorporated into the plan at only the cost of just a little bit lower income after year 10, when we were going to plan to take income distributions against the policy. So we were able to find that out. Now, at the same time, we're going to be making payments on this loan, at least interest-only payments. And this was a business. Can we still get that deduction? I mean, if there's a deduction to be had, I want that deduction. Checked with his accountant. His first response was not good. He thought, well, let's put it into a home equity line of credit. Like, well, no, that doesn't work because the tax law changed in 2018. Those are not deductible anymore for interest.
Right.
I checked with my own internal CPA of our group, and he confirmed for me what I knew, but he didn't think of any other way to help keep that deduction.
Mm-hmm.
The original CPA came back and said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a fictitious name statement, and we're going to file a Schedule C so that you can still deduct these payments against a business entity. And we'll do that for 5 years until you pay it off. I'm like, perfect. So we've preserved the tax deduction because we're going to keep that loan in good standing. We're going to pay. We've made provisions to pay it off at the end of 5 years. The bank isn't going to lose any money. We've avoided a bankruptcy. We've got more flexibility and guarantees than anything else. And I'm like, who else could have done this?
No. The liquidity, the tax savings, the flexibility. It's like you said, you laid it out. You couldn't have gotten higher income because you decreased tax liability, increased income and cash flow, and provided liquidity using less money than any scenario. It's unbelievable. It's revolutionary.
It's revolutionary. It's amazing. And even I'm amazed by it. The more I think about it, like, you can have some fun, like, damn, I'm good. But, but really, but it's finding the magic between these contracts that I can get that synergy going.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other contract, the annuity, it does not have any fees. And again, I don't want to get into product specifics, but it doesn't have any fees. And at the end of 10 years, it also has a lifetime benefit rider. So we're still going to get income from that too. And according to the projection, it's going to be lower than the standard deduction. So they're not going to have to pay any tax on that either. And we've avoided the Social Security taxes. I think they're going to be at the 50% mark for the 10 years. But after that, no more.
Call that, David. Is there a name for that type of plan you've created?
I'm sorry. I just had a nice expletive that came into my mind that was basically saying it's the FUIRS plan. But I don't know if that's really that marketable.
No, and that's also going to have to get bleeped now from the show and post. Now we have 2 bleeps.
We got 2 bleeps. We could also call it Joe Biden Do As I Do, Not As I Say tax plan.
Oh.
Because Joe Biden happens to have 6 life insurance policies that he disclosed on his financial declaration form for running for president.
Joe Biden has 6 life insurance policies?
Yes, he does.
Wow, I didn't know that.
With Mass Mutual, so they're all with the same company.
He's with Mass Mutual?
Mm-hmm.
And did I heard that he disclosed he owned an annuity as well.
I didn't pay attention to that part, so I won't say it wasn't there. I don't recall. But the life insurance was what got my attention.
I didn't read it personally, but I did hear somebody was talking, and that's not worth anything, but I thought I heard that they said that he had disclosed part of his money was in an annuity with security benefit.
Okay, wouldn't surprise me.
I don't know, that's what I heard.
But it didn't pop up. I have the form, but I'm not going to take time to look at it now. And so the thing is that, and with there was another law that just passed last month that was favorable to the life insurance industry regarding interest rate assumptions within the policies that was able to help to lower the amount of reserve needed for a given death benefit, however it was structured, but it was a way to give them a little more flexibility. What does that tell me? That tells me that the government loves life insurance. And strange enough, the party you think should love life insurance isn't the party you think.
Well, okay, expand on that. Why does the government life insurance, and who are you talking about?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Look, I am a conservative. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to talk about any part other than for political views.
Okay.
But we have someone in our financial group who's been on the board of FinSECA, which is an acronym. I don't remember what it stands for, but it was the former AALU, Advanced Association of Life Underwriting. And they are a political advocacy group. And the neat thing is that those members can go and talk to people, members of Congress and such, advocating for the life insurance industry.
Wow.
Now, they're advocating for the industry, not for a political ideology. Therefore, you got to shake hands and kiss babies on both sides. Yeah, and you put your own biases aside, which is important for that role.
Yeah, don't make it partisan. Life insurance is for everybody.
Absolutely. And so the thing is that one of the people that are generally most hated on the right, not the people that on the right that most hate someone on the left.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Chuck Schumer.
Okay.
If there's a redeeming quality about Chuck Schumer, is that he loves the life insurance industry.
He does. I didn't know that.
He does.
Really?
And so okay, I need to make sure that I'm listening to more. I mean, I'm in California. We're all blue now. So I need to see who's paying attention as to our industry so we make sure our industry stays relevant, stays current. I don't want anything to happen to our policies. In fact, the fact that Joe Biden has these kinds of policies tells me they're not about to change the tax law on these policies. Granted, the way that we use them, it would be very difficult to change the tax law because there's a very particular provision, and I'll share this. The General Accounting Office of January 1990, there is a document on this. And essentially, this is a scathing review of the life insurance industry and annuities. And it's scathing because of all the tax benefits that are in there. They say, we're not getting all the revenue we could have. We got to make these taxable and everything.
Yeah.
And so on page 27 of that, there is a paragraph that essentially says, when someone takes a loan against their life insurance, it is not it's not a realization of income, but merely a transfer of capital, and it's simply repaid at death with reduced proceeds for the beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. Therefore, people can use their life insurance for purposes other than insurance at the cost of a reduced death benefit. You can't pay for a better endorsement of why this strategy is so good. We help people spend their death benefit while they're alive so you can be the primary beneficiary of your life's work and of your financial retirement plan.
Wow, that's the tagline right there.
There it is.
That's incredible. So, David, do you ever wonder, that's amazing that you've identified and outlined the origins of, where the industry is going. Obviously there's certain politicians that are tied to the industry, but what about grandfathering? Because a lot of people talk about they'll there's a good precedent that they'll grandfather people, right? So that's all we can go off of is we always know that, hey, they're not really big on cutting people off midstream of benefits. They're much more likely to grandfather a certain group who's already used to that standard of living, and people who don't know any better who are coming up, they cut them off before they ever have a chance of knowing what those benefits are like. Therefore, it's much easier to manage people's reactions to that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's so many examples in recent history. Look at Social Security. They just did it. I mean, it happens right in front of your eyes.
Well, that's one reason why I like calling these wealth contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Because the contracts are based on when they were put in force.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back in time a little bit because that GAO, General Accounting Office report came in January 1990. Well, before that, we had 3 separate laws, in 84, 86, and 88, something like that, that we call them TAMRA, TEFRA, and DEFRA. Don't ask me what those acronyms stand for anymore. I just barely know that part now. But they changed parts of the tax structure and the structure of life insurance and how they can retain their tax benefits. So there's some fundamental changes, and that's why that report came out in 1990. The precedent is that all those policies before certain dates in 86 or 88, depending if we're talking about life insurance or annuities, all those are under the old rules. And so it's important for an agent to recognize that if they're looking at policies that much older, don't replace that thing just yet. It just might have some other provisional things there that are very advantageous. So better not touch those.
God bless my dad. That was the first thing he taught me to look for. He goes, when you go look at a life insurance policy, the first thing you better look for is that thing pre-TEFRA, because he's like, if it is, you encourage the client, make sure if it's suitable, they keep that thing because they're going to need it. With those tax benefits. So
absolutely. And that
I was taught that very early on for, because they had those old grandfather privileges that were benefits that people don't have anymore.
Absolutely. And so we want to make sure that we preserve those. And those things are so much older that most people probably don't have them anymore. But if you have one, keep it, especially if it's paid up.
Well, and all
So,
the more reason to look at strategies being proactive now, because when's the next pre-TEFRA? I mean, what is it, 2000? Are people 20 years from now going to go, hey, if you have policies before 2021, make sure you know what I'm saying?
well, if the government knows we have these policies, and if the government knows that we're able to use them in a tax advantaged way, how long are they going to let us keep these policies in this way? And it might not be for much longer. At the same time, I'm not going to cause a panic on anybody, say, hurry up and get one. But at the same time, it does make me wonder because they're spending, okay, the phrase is usually they're spending money like a drunken sailor, but I've seen the reports where drunken sailors know when to stop because they run out of money. We print the stuff like it's going out of style. So at some point, someone's going to need to be paid something at some point. I just don't know when, and I don't know what that's going to look like. And hopefully we can. Here's the neat thing, though, that the more they print the money, the more the inflation rate goes. And you know what benefits from that inflation rate is the cash values of these policies. So we could actually benefit, and especially if that reserve requirement's a little bit lower, maybe the company ratings help improve the performance. I don't know. Those are just speculations. I am not an economist at all whatsoever. But I can think that it'll be a good thing. And here's the other part too, is that life insurance and annuities presents a social benefit. And that's one reason why the Democrats will never touch it, because, it's better to have the insurance industry pay than them to pay. So it makes so much better that let the insurance industry do our job and be able to bring that benefit out. In fact, I was listening to another interview, this was some time ago, and we're talking about employee stock option plans, ESOP. Now, I barely know how to spell ESOP. But apparently, the Republicans would love it because of all the tax benefits. The Democrats love it because now we're sharing the opportunity, the ownership with the employees.
Yeah.
That plan is not going to go anywhere, just because you have equal sentiment on both sides for a particular reason. So as long as we can find the common ground.
Yeah.
And I don't mind being a political advocate for life insurance, so to speak, although I'm afraid I would really embarrass myself if I had to go on Capitol Hill somewhere. I don't think I could look someone straight in the eye and be professional. I have to work on that. That's a personal weakness of mine.
David,
I'd have a hard time.
You have like 8,500 people behind you that if a NAFA trustee board seat opened up to go to Congress, you'd be nominated after this.
Oh, no. Open mouth, insert foot. I already know. I'm not at that point yet. Give me a couple of years. I would spoil some. I would be the reason they would kick NAFA out. I just don't think it would be good. But then again, we're in a politically charged climate right now. I don't want anybody thinking I'm going to do something crazy right now.
We'd all be watching on like C-SPAN or something. It'd be like trials and be like, David, they'd be like, yeah, NAFA's not allowed here anymore. They can't come to these. Yeah. Who's this guy, David? No, it'd be an honor, man. You represent all of us tremendously. And you have your first nomination right here, just so you know. So.
No, thank you. I'm afraid, but thank you.
No. Just don't let David do his thing. He's got to share and help agents one-on-one. He can't be going to Congress. Okay, so a couple quick questions that I want to ask you about while you made me think about this. I know it seems like for you that it's like, man, the government has got to be able to take these benefits away because they're so good, because they're helping consumers and do things that no other, as you outlined clearly and very simply in a short amount of time, like very brilliantly, hey, look, here's each planning method. Here's conventional. Here's what most people are doing in the advisor world. By the way, here's what's possible, and here's what we did for my parents. So like, you can't do anything better than you would do for your mom and dad, right? By the way, my parents, grandparents all use life insurance and annuities proficiently, had successful retirements, businesses use it in their businesses. We're big believers too in our family of using life insurance and annuities in tandem properly to combine for retirement and those benefits you spoke of. So I guess what's interesting about all this, David, is I have a couple questions. It's so obvious to you that they may take those benefits away, but I don't think even insurance agents, the vast majority of us, who are the ones who are responsible for educating consumers on these strategies, are using them in the manner that you're using them. So where do financial professionals go to get help on learning these strategies, working with you, talking, like where do people go? Where's a good resource for somebody who's like, man, that's awesome, but I still have no idea how to execute that? Like, because that's the missing link, right? Where do agents go to get that? Where do financial professionals?
Where do we learn it? Absolutely. And I'm going to give you a couple of answers. The first one is the self-study answer.
Okay.
We have a group, and I'm going to talk about the Breakaway League, which is the financial group I'm a part of. And within the Breakaway League, we actually have 5 CPAs and 1 corporate counsel attorney. If I have more attorneys, they're in hiding. But one of our CPAs actually wrote a series of books called Confessions of a CPA. And
Oh, no,
we got
that's
3
your
of them.
CPA?
I'm sorry?
That's your CPA that wrote those?
His name is Brian Bloom. He's not my personal CPA, but he's a part of our firm,
Yeah.
a part of our
I'm
financial
familiar with
group.
the book. It's come up in our authors club.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book,
Yeah.
and they're geared towards consumers. So if you really like this and you can learn how to communicate what we're doing, then that's a good leave behind book to give. The first book is called What I Thought to Be True Wasn't. The second book is The Truth About Life Insurance.
Yeah.
And the third book, which I basically touched on, is the capital equivalent value of life insurance. Basically, to get the result life insurance can give you, how much would you have to have somewhere else to generate the same result and be able to measure that? And so I've been privileged to also introduce the author, Brian Bloom, to the CLU program director. I would love to see that incorporated in the CLU curriculum. I'm actually taking CLU courses just because I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
They're very light on actual client benefits, practical applications. I'm learning all about company reserves and operations and actuarial design, but none of that matters to the client.
Right.
And now I'm in life insurance law, and like now I've got all these other terms I've got to figure out, but none of that
I
matters to the
can't say I'm
client.
surprised. I mean, every time you take some kind of class, it's like you're sitting there going, okay, but like when I'm sitting with grandma and grandpa at their kitchen table and they go, what about this? That's what I want to learn. That's what I'm saying. This is where agents go as the Breakaway League.
And so the Breakaway League, we are a group of about 50 professionals nationwide. Cool. And we're headed up by a gentleman. His name is Tom Love, and he's been doing this for at least 12 years with a primary company. We believe that Ohio National has created their products from the ground up to support distributing cash to the policyholder, as opposed to some other companies based on what we've studied of their designs. And so
you're saying they're actually favorable, their contracts are favorable towards these types of loans you were talking about that you structured even for your mom.
Exactly, and that's why, and so Ohio National has a very unique culture for agents. I really love being a part of it. So here's the fun part that I like sharing about the Breakaway League.
Yeah,
we have over $1.5 billion of our clients' wealth off the radar screen of the IRS for income tax purposes that will never be subject to an income tax.
Wow.
So our invitation is. $1.5 billion, yeah, with a B. I'd like to add a 0 to that. That's even good the next couple of years. But yeah, but our message for agents: come and learn what we're doing. We have different events. You go to the Breakaway League website. There's an events tab. You can sign up learn from some of our case design specialists. We call them Meet a Mentor. Also, we have boot camps where we go into depth about these strategies and about the tax code and about how life insurance works, how annuities work, how investments work. It's very in-depth, very thorough.
Yeah.
For the public, the big thing about it is to make sure that we're able to communicate what we do in a clear and concise manner. We try to use unusual language because we don't want to be labeled as something that we're really not. So, for example, if I come into a mixer or to a church event or something and, David, what do you do for a living? I'm not about to say that I'm a life insurance agent. And the reason is because you're probably going to have a preconceived idea of what you believe that means.
Yeah. No one's going to talk to you. As soon as you said it, I laughed because I'm going, you won't have any friends they won't want to hang out with you because you're just worried you're going to try to sell them life insurance.
Or they're going to be, oh, that's nice. Okay. And if they have any interest, they're going to think, well, can you save me money on my current policy? Or can you get me any coverage because maybe I'm sick? Maybe you can get an exception for me. Mm-hmm. And that's not my goal. That's not the message I want to portray. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is how do we introduce ourselves to the public? And we've learned from a number of different people in the public speaking circuit that what we do is not important, but why we do it is. And being able to find our why. Why did I come into the financial business in the first place? Yes, you can make a lot of money. Yes, it seemed like an esteemed career, but why? What was it? And I thought, I want to help people be successful financially. That was my very first why. I'm like, if I can have a help in helping somebody to do that, that's great. but I've been around a while and realized, okay, in 2008, when I saw the market tank in 2 months, 50%,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not I didn't realize this. It wasn't my fault. I didn't cause it. I'm just saying that seeing the market take 50% and then take 4.5 to 5.5 years to recover, that's not exactly what I had in mind when I wanted to do financial planning for people. But what I've discovered in studying the tax code and in studying how we can bring about these unusual results, what I've discovered is that I'm crusading for the individual, to put individuals over institutions so that the individual becomes the primary beneficiary of their life's work and their financial planning. Help them maximize their potential and remove the barriers that keep them from realizing that potential in their lives. You see, what I've discovered is that if you retire in California and you retire the way traditional planning teaches you to retire, you're going to be paid sixth in line out of your own money. Sixth.
Yeah.
Where the banks, financial institutions, Wall Street, and the IRS, they're ahead of you in that line. They already have their hands in your money before you do. And so I want to teach the American taxpayer, and especially the American retiree and pre-retiree, if you're within those few years, how the tax code works, that we can turn it completely around. So I can help you be the primary beneficiary of your life's work. And if we do this right, we can help you to possibly double, maybe even triple your after-tax retirement cash flow, help you to even retire without even filing a tax return, and do it within the tax code. Now, we have $1.5 billion of our clients' wealth already off the radar screen of the IRS. If we could do the same for you, would you like to learn what they've learned? That's my invitation.
That was inspired. So if someone's watching this, they go, okay, I'm not a financial professional, but obviously I want to set up a tax-free retirement, or I want to learn how to take my wealth off the radar screen because I'm worried about tax hikes. How do people do that? Where do they get a hold of you there?
Well, to contact me, because why would I send anybody anywhere else? You come to my website.
We want, because you're the one that has built this plan. You're the architect. So we want to talk to you. How do we get a hold of you?
So you go to my website. My website is dynamicadvancedwealth.com, and you'll be able to contact me there. You'll see I actually have an overdeveloped website. There's way too much information there. I got a few videos. I have a video library. I've got all these IRS links. I got so much stuff on there. But you can find the contact me, and you can send me a message there. You'll find me on Facebook. I have a business page there for Dynamic Advanced Wealth. You can find me on LinkedIn, also Dynamic Advanced Wealth. I'm on Twitter, but I don't know how much longer that will be there, but that's under Tax Exempt Wealth. And I'm on Instagram also as Dynamic Advanced Wealth. In those places, I'm hoping that when someone wants to stop by and they take a look at my stuff, they say, this David guy, he just might know a thing or two. I wonder what he can do for me. And what we want to do is we want to see, what could this look like for you? Would it make sense? And by the way, just like with my own parents, if it wouldn't make sense, I won't promote it. If I can't make the numbers work, we're not going forward, because I won't feel right about it. If it's 50-50, I'll tell you my concerns and let you decide. Yeah. If it's definitely in your best interest, we got to get together now after we've done the study and say, you really want to see this and make your own decision. I'll be a little too excited at that point, but that'll be nice.
Oh, that's awesome. David, it's always a pleasure to have you. We got to run. We're out of time. But before we go, quick question, last one. Are you able to help businesses in this way as well? You talked about a lot of individuals, retirees. What about businesses? Can businesses do these strategies, deploy these for their companies, their key employees, for their executives? Can you set this up for a business? Because this show is geared towards mostly, the entrepreneur. So what can they be doing in their businesses as they're battling cash flow issues to make sure that they're in a situation, because your dad was an entrepreneur. What do entrepreneurs do ahead of time to be proactive? Can you answer that in a minute?
Entrepreneurs is a little different, because and I'm going to differentiate my dad from other business owners, because my dad was a business operator. He didn't own it, because if he owned it, he might have been able to sell it, get the revenue, and pay off the business loan. That would have been nice.
Well, yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, so there was that one. That wasn't an option. He was an operator, kind of like a franchisee. So for other entrepreneurs, yes, we could do all this on a personal basis. And here's the neat thing. What if we could have $1 do the function of 4? That would be my question for an entrepreneur. $1 on your balance sheet do the function of 4.
They would appreciate that.
Where you could have $1 help you to finance your inventory, help you to hire more employees, or be the business interruption policy Because in case something happens, you still have cash reserves to be able to pay the people that need to get paid. You having that reserve, now that's before retirement, but that is the potential there. At retirement, I mean, here's the thing about the entrepreneur. If anybody goes to battle for with the IRS every year, it's you. If anybody knows the tax pain, it's you. How many benefits do you get in the tax code? Not enough. Not for the risk you take.
Yeah.
And so for an entrepreneur, wouldn't it be nice so that when they finally get to the date when you're ready to retire, you can retire the IRS and divorce them possibly? Wouldn't that be a nice potential to have? In addition, and this is an area that I am dangerous in, so I'm very cautious on this, but there are ways to work with the business asset to help get that to be tax advantage to you as well. So if you're going to have the business go to the next generation, how can we do that? Well, we talked a little bit about ESOPs.
ESOPs, yeah.
That's one way to do that.
Wow.
So there's many different ways if we're working with someone with a strategic mind. And if it's me, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And maybe it'll be me with someone else that I work with because I don't have all the ideas. Thank goodness. If I had to say I knew it all, that would be the end of my humility. But being able to bring those ideas out and let's see, what does everything look like? How can we get you the best possible result out of the plan that we do?
Yeah.
We can do a lot of things for business owners. I'm looking forward to expanding into that space. But right now, COVID, I think, has a bigger impact on people who are going to feel economically displaced.
Yeah.
You know, people that are just a couple of years away from their planned retirement, let alone, you know, to retire on time. We've talked about in our industry about the retirement red zone, the 5 years before and the 5 years after retirement. Mm-hmm. And we normally talk about it for investments. Well, now it's not just investment. It's about can you keep your income coming so you can fund the retirement you're planning to have. So I think that there's a little bit more attention there for retirees. I have a little bit more expertise there, but believe me, the entrepreneurs, they're right there. Because if you're spending, your revenue's going down, you're probably wondering, when should I sell this business or should I hold on? And because if you keep holding on, the value of that business might keep going down. When do you make a decision? There's a lot of things that go on for the entrepreneur. In fact, the entrepreneur, the biggest challenge for the entrepreneur is, do I put money back in my business or do I invest separately? That's usually the question that they usually have.
Oh, yeah.
And so the problem of that decision is the question is, or what if you can do both? You can have the money invested separately, but be able to use it for your business and you create that synergy. And what if you can actually get paid by the IRS to do it? And yes, I'm not kidding. If you're using a life insurance loan in order to finance a part of your business, and if the dividend helps cover the interest and the interest you can deduct from your taxes, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Wow. David, what I'm hearing from this is it's possible for some people, but if they work with you, it's going to get taken into account. And I got to be honest, and I don't brag about this on the show. I'm a best-selling author on the subject of taxes and retirement. And what you showed me, that design that you showed me in pre-show, and I won't go into it because of our confidentiality arrangement, but you know what you showed me the other day, that inspired me. I mean, we went back to work and I came in and sat down the next day and I said, you guys won't believe what I just saw last night. This is going to change a lot for our practice and our clients and our policyholders and life. It was really inspired work. And I just got to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you. I've been meaning to make this happen for a long time. And please reach out to David. He can help make a difference in your business, your retirement, your life. He's been a great friend and a mentor to me. And I want you to take great care as you reach out to him. He's a special friend. David, thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Danny. I really enjoy sharing what I do. I love it. And hopefully I can share it with more people to see how I can help improve and revitalize, restore the promise of an American retirement with, you know, we all live happily ever after. That's the goal. Your innovation and your insights to the Breakaway League and some of those really powerful strategies you share with us today are so valuable. We'd love to invite you back in a few months and check in and see what you're working on, because I think it would bring a lot of value to our audience. So sounds great. We'll do that. Thanks so much, David. Take care.